We are full of concepts and we think we're living, but we're really conceptualizing.
See change when you go from being in your mind to being in your heart.
And the Course of Love was about discovering our true identity.
Welcome everyone to our show. This is Heart to Heart, how our Course of Love is changing our lives. And my name is Lynn Kidd, and I'll be your host today. And what our show is about, we're going to give you a little bit of a taste of A Course of Love, a little bit of introduction, and how our guest today is going to share some personal experiences and how his life is being transformed by A Course of Love. So let me welcome our guest, Knazovicky. Welcome, Cole.
Thank you. Well pronounced.
Cole, I would just like to take a minute, if you could, just share a little bit about your personal journey, who you are before you came to A Course of Love.
Oh yeah, I was born in Slovakia when I was 23. I migrated to Australia. As usual, wanted to get rich and famous, and I'm a classical guitarist, and so I was performing around in Sydney, and I was working hard, and then one day I heard this voice, and then everything changed from there, and I kept hearing this voice that led me to Course in Miracles, but also led me to a piece of work called Right Use of Will, which is like the Course in Miracles is for the mind, the Course of Love is for the heart, and Right Use of Will was like this manual to understand our deep feeling body and what is its purpose and how to actually correctly use it. So there were my two main things, was the Course in Miracles and Right Use of Will. And yeah, I've traveled with those over 30 years with each of those. And besides, I was teaching music, and I teach at the Steiner School, and I also run men's groups, which it's all about deep masculine presence and that kind of masculine journey. It was very, very profound work. So I've been doing that for about 20 years. So that's roughly it.
You have a 10-year-old son, is that correct?
Yeah, I have nearly 11.
Oh, wow. Okay. And he lives with you in Australia?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're very good buddies. We are.
I know you are.
He always goes, "Ooh, Papa's doing this spiritual thing."
Oh, that's so sweet. I know you love
sweet.
your son. I can feel your heart. Okay, so just briefly before we get into A Course of Love, can you let us know how you discovered A Course of Love?
Well, I had a teacher in the Course of Miracles who actually not only introduced me to Course of Miracles, but she introduced me to an experience of Course of Miracles. Because it's one thing to read the Course of Miracles, but another thing is to have an experience. And I remember I rang her, and it was like, I didn't know who I was, where I was, what was happening. Something profound was happening. And 3.5 years ago, I began to think, oh, I got to call my teacher. I just got to call my teacher. And I called her, and I said, what are you doing these days? And she says, well, I'm reading this Course of Love. And before we finished conversation, I've already downloaded on my iBooks, and I began to read it. And she said, it's a little bit different to Course in Miracles, and you will probably frown at it, but just stick with it. And because I trusted her so much and had such a profound experience with her my whole life, I really began to read it, and it didn't take long, and I had this most profound experience with The Course of Love. Like at the chapter 1, it all happened for me. So that's how I got introduced to it, and I was frowning at it. The whole prelude and introduction, I was just going like, this is nothing like The Course in Miracles, like really rigid. I thought that Course in Miracles was like this ultimate book, and suddenly I'm going like, wow, this is actually doing something to me that I haven't experienced before.
That's a similar experience I've heard with others too, is the receiving of it. It's not a book to be studied, and there's some kind of inner transmission that's actually going on when you receive this teaching, or this, it's the transmission that's, you feeling the
Yes.
essence of it within yourself. Yes. So
Yeah.
anyway, well, thank you for sharing that, and maybe this is a good time we can get into a little bit with A Course of Love. Maybe you have a favorite line or a passage you would like to share with us.
I'll share that particular, that section that when I came to it. See, I always had this thing about, how much do I really trust Jesus? And I had this scaling like from 0 to 10, and I was like, I think 8, that's pretty high. And I was like happy that I have such a close connection, right? But then when I read this section, I open up, I keep reading the course, and it says here, in chapter 1, 10, it says, resign as your own teacher. Oh, no, okay. I heard that before. It was in A Course in Miracles. And then it says, accept me as your teacher and accept that I will teach you the truth. And it says, find no shame in this. You cannot learn what I would teach you without me. And it says, you have tried in countless ways and can still try again, but you will not succeed. And that was the line where I went, oh, there is actually, no matter how much I study all of this, unless I really accept this new teaching, this new presence, I will just keep doing it on my own. And then it says, not because you're not smart enough, not because you will not try hard enough, because I definitely try hard enough, but because it is impossible. And I think at that time, I remember I closed the book, I closed my eyes and I opened my eyes, and everything was different. Because what I realized in that moment as well, actually a little bit later after that moment, I realized that I really didn't trust Jesus 10 out of 10. And for that moment, because I could see that without this help, there's nothing I can achieve really of any meaning. And and I realized that in spirituality, it's like, it's either yes or no. You either trust or you don't. And 99.9 it's still nothing. It's 100%. And in that moment, I had this 100%. And in that moment, like my whole mind and it's just changed into something different. And I looked around and I'm going, why is everything looking different? And it was the same, but it was different. And then a friend of mine came and he asked me if I was on drugs. And I said, no, I just had this profound experience. I can't put my mind around it. It's incredible. And I started to see that inner kingdom, Jesus says, the kingdom of heaven is within. And I go, oh, this is that kingdom thing. It was absolutely a mystic experience that lasted 40 days on top of it. And every single day, I was just getting more full as I could handle it. And I can tell you that after about day 3, I was going into this little sort of like, oh my God, if this increases anymore, I don't think I'm going to be able to handle this. By the day 5, I was virtually on my knees begging for it to just pause for a moment, because it was seriously like, a very alert state of being, and it wasn't comfortable. And after about 30 days, it began to kind of subside a bit, and I was almost having this, like, ooh, I'm having a bit of a rest from this. I'm having rest from this intensity. So, and then I actually could not read the book. I couldn't read Course of Love for a little while. The only thing I could read was the epilogue. So every day I read the epilogue. And that was the only thing I could do.
So how do you feel now, like today, or you feel like you've totally integrated the Course of Love within your life right now? Do you feel like it's totally integrated, like 100%? Were you able to carry that experience with you once it calmed down, and you said maybe lasted 30 to 40 days? Were you able to?
It never changed. It's always there. There is this knowing. There is this. You know how we talk about dialogue in a Course of Love. Dialogue is not a chat. Like at the moment we're chatting about Course of Love. But dialogue is when. I guess you just had that moment when I talked about it. It just connected to you. Like my experience was maybe a little bit transferred just to talking about it.
No, I felt it. I definitely felt it.
That's it. Now we're talking. That's the dialogue. That to me is a dialogue, because my whole experience got transferred over to you, and then you shared it back at me. Wow. Just by me seeing your eyes lighten it up and going, oh, I know what he's talking about. Because there's no words to describe it. There is no mouth to speak it, but it's the actual experience. And for me, Course of Love is a constant reminder to drop me into this place of where there is a dialogue between the creator and the created, and the fulfillment of that moment. It's just it's beyond what can be told, like.
Thank you for sharing that, because I really felt it when you were describing that. I could feel it. I was actually, and you could see that I was receiving it. That was
Absolutely.
Beautiful. That was beautiful.
And also what happened.
Yeah. Go
just
ahead.
one more thing I want to say is that knowing the kingdom within, I can see the kingdom in everyone. I can see it wherever I go. I can see people, they all have it. Everyone has this kingdom within. Like Jesus wasn't kidding when he said that.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And you can also see that they're not in touch with that, but it's like, it's closer than a breath, it's like, it's right here.
That's cool. That's beautiful. I just thought maybe you had any extra last minute thoughts on somebody brand new that's just come into A Course of Love, who's never heard of it, who might be seeing our video here and who's brand new. Would you have any advice or just suggestions to someone brand new to A Course of Love?
Yeah, just relax. Relax, that it's the less effort you put into it, the more it comes.
Yes.
It's a non-doing thing. It's unlearning what we learn, and just realize that we already accomplished and it's already all in us. And the less we strive, it's like when he says, resign as your own teacher. Stop trying to figure this thing out. And in that moment, there it is. You're always as you were before, except without the trying bit,
Well, thank you so much, Cole. We're out of time.
Oh, thank
Unfortunately,
you.
we could have this dialogue all day with you, but I'm so sorry that we're out of time. But I'm so honored to have you here, and you have blessed my evening here in America. So thank you so much.
Likewise.
Really appreciate it.